Cortland Simmons with you here on this first day of October, continuing with the CS Racing Report, and we're recapping Super Saturday and Super Sunday. We're looking at the Awesome Again, considered by many to be the feature or the co-feature, along with the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Belmont Park, which was won by Discreet Lover at 45 to 1. So looking at the Awesome Again, $300,000, grade 1, 9 furlongs, a mile and an eighth at Santa Anita, out on the left coast, and it featured Accelerate, who's been devastating in this 2018 calendar year, winning at a mile and a quarter 3 times. Was a very bang up second to City of Light in the Oaklawn handicap, his only loss of the year. He comes into this 9 furlong test off a 12 1/4 length destruction of his opposition in the Pacific Classic. West Coast had not run since running second to Thunder Snow, who we talked about in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. The runner up there just nipped in the last strides by the 45 to 1 Discreet Lover in the Gold Cup. West Coast had not run since that day in March in Dubai on what many thought was a speed favoring track. And in this race, he was coming in off a prolonged layoff, much like McKenzie for the Baffert Barn the previous week in the Pennsylvania Derby, a race which West Coast won in 2017 after winning the Travers, which propelled him to the 3-year-old championship in the Eclipse Award. So he came in this race, he showed some pace pressing tactics, got into the race, 22.89 in the first quarter, sneaked up and got the lead at the half, which was running 46.17. The final time, you'll be surprised by the final time if you don't already know it. Got kind of outrun by a horse by the name of Isotherm on the inside as Accelerate loomed up, ranging up on the outside. He had a lot of trouble, didn't want to go into gate, was 4 wide, had some issues in that race, but he was still able to prevail over West Coast, who battled valiantly in the stretch, winning it by 2 1/4 lengths as West Coast finished a half length in front of Isotherm. Accelerate punches $180,000 check. Winner's purse as West Coast picks up $60,000 and Isotherm gets a nice $36,000 payday for his efforts. Whether he's a Breeders' Cup worthy horse or he'll be slotted into another event in this 2-day World Championships, we'll have to wait and see. Bob Baffert stated after the race that the horse was 80% and this would move him forward. I believe that, but the final time of 150.38, it could be argued Accelerate was gonna maybe, sort of come back and maybe not literally regress. If he had done that, he would have lost or even finished off the board. So, in looking at the raw data when it comes to the Awesome Again, there's good news and there's bad news, but as Secretariat's trainer Lucian Lauren once said, give me the bad news first, I can chase it with the good. So, in looking at the downside, the bad part of the Awesome Again, if you want to look at it this way, in the end we're going to find out when the Breeders' Cup it takes place at Churchill Downs, the host of the Kentucky Derby as well, and as I said, the host of this year's World Thoroughbred Championships. And the running time is what stands out. The horses seem to be crawling down the lane. Look like they would never get to the wire when it comes to the top 3 finishers, that being an Accelerate, West Coast, and Isotherm, a horse that a lot of people thought had no chance in this race, and he actually ran very well. But that's, one of the points of contention here on the downside of this Awesome Again. The winning time was 150.38, very comparable with the criticism that's been levied at the 3-year-olds for being too slow this year, running times ranging from 149 and change to the 152.05 that McKenzie posted in the Pennsylvania Derby the previous week to this Super Saturday and Super Sunday. And remember, he's considered to be a major player should he be able to make it to the Breeders' Cup Classic, also trained by Bob Baffert, stablemate of West Coast. So the 150.38 is certainly a concern. The Beyer speed figure. Accelerate posted at a 100 Beyer speed figure and a 122 time form rating compared to the Pacific Classic that he won by 12 1/4 lengths, where he posted a 115 Beyer speed figure and a 137 time form rating. It seems like night and day. And that's where a lot of people are starting to believe that the rotors are starting to wear a little bit thin for Accelerate, but that may not be true. But it is something to look at. There is cause for concern that there may be some cracks in the pavement when it comes to the 5-year-old son of Looking at Lucky. Also, and this has been the burning $64 question since the summertime, and I've been putting this out there, the road trip. Can Accelerate carry his form on the road? If he runs the way he did in the Awesome Again, he's not even going to hit the board. And he's done quite a bit of damage, winning at a mile and a quarter 3 times. The question is, can he do it for a 4th time when it counts the most in the Breeders' Cup Classic? So not only that, West Coast, the runner-up, first run in 6.5 months, as we aforementioned, since the Dubai World Cup. Can he be fit enough after this race to really be legitimately a solid contender in the Breeders' Cup Classic? And we're going to find that out. That's a huge question. He made a good run. The time wasn't particularly fast. Interestingly enough, he ran a 97 buyer, but his time for him was 2 points higher than Accelerate at 124. And I think a lot of that had to do when you look at the color coding and pressing the pace and getting the lead at the half mile and then being passed by Isotherm, a horse that, as many people say, is another reason why people question the legitimacy of the top two horses. But, you know, because Isotherm got by West Coast in the stretch, as I mentioned before West Coast rebroke and made a race of it, before Accelerate did just that, shifted into another gear and took over, although it was those gears were a little bit sticky in this particular event, and that's where the eyebrows are being raised in the lead up to the Breeders' Cup World Thoroughbred Championships. Now, the good part is, or the upside is that Accelerate did a number of things that you have to be, that you have to like, and that is that number one, he didn't want to go in the gate. That's something that he's going to have to correct his behavior in the Breeders' Cup. That certainly can take energy from a horse, but he overcame that and a wide trip to win this race, and that's a mark of a good horse when you can overcome trouble. As Todd Pletcher said before the Belmont Stakes, when Justify was shooting for the Triple Crown, everybody thought that he struggled in the Preakness, and he still, if you want to believe he didn't have his best stuff, and I'm paraphrasing, as Pletcher mentioned, when a horse wins, when he doesn't have his best, he can be that much more dangerous in his next start, and that certainly could apply to Accelerate. And he has time to acclimate himself to the surroundings at Churchill Downs. And remember, if he likes that racetrack, then look out. He's going to, definitely be able. He's going to produce the way that he did earlier this year. But the question is going to be if he can do it against better horses. But again, if he devastates the field and comes through, Louisville like a tornado and destroys everything in his path, then nobody's going to have a chance. And interestingly enough, that upside may come to fruition simply because in the lead up to the Santa Anita Derby, on Santa Anita Derby Day, when Justify broke through to win his first Grade 1 and only his third start, people criticized the winning time, but Bob Baffert and everyone else knew that track was not playing as fast, and that's been the current trend at Santa Anita, that it's not as lightning fast and as hard, as rock hard as it used to be. So that's reflective of times being a little bit slower. But make no mistake, these horses were crawling down the lane. But if there's hope springing eternal here, if you want it to spring eternal, then you would have to believe that Accelerate will do just that, jump up a couple of points upon liking and upon getting a feel for the Churchill Downs surface, which a lot of horses seem to like. It seems to play fair, barring a weather setback, and of course that's something you can't control. So if that is the case, if Accelerate's an even faster horse at Churchill Downs than he was at Santa Anita, and he's going to have to improve, no matter whether you buy into the depth of the racetrack, having an effect on the winning time being a little slower than what people anticipated off the Pacific Classic. He's going to have to step up, as I said before, in order to win this race, and for that matter, hit the board. We've seen a lot of favorites come in with impeccable form to the Breeders' Cup and then just get, roasted, buried, and swamped. So that's going to happen, and everybody knows going into this Breeders' Cup, Diversify was looking to be, looked like an unbeatable sort, and he basically got, barbecued in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but he has no one else but himself to blame. He was the one setting those fractions. He just couldn't finish. So we're going to have to see if Accelerate is going to improve when we get to Churchill Downs for the World Thoroughbred Championships, how West Coast will fare, juxtaposed against the 3-year-olds and some of the other top handicap horses. And we'll cover it right here at the CS Racing Report.
3/16 left to go. It's Accelerate with West Coast dogged on the inside. Isotherm between them, running a bold race. West Coast and Accelerate, a riveting renewal of the awesome again. Accelerate on the outside with his head in front close to home. West Coast running out of puff, has given a good account of himself, but Accelerate keeps powering on. Accelerate 2.5 lengths coming away to beat West Coast and Isotherm.